Thank you so much, Julie. First off, I'd like to acknowledge that we stand on Quandamuka land and that sovereignty was never conceded, and that I'm so glad that we get the opportunity to gather together here and move forward in unity and in learning new things. My name is Miriam Byrne, as Julie said. My pronouns are they and them, and today we're going to talk about what is a blog anyway. I did realize after I submitted this proposal that I shouldn't have used the word blog in my title, because I actually fully suggest that we stop using the word blog. We'll talk about why in a hot second. I think that, so an overview for today, is that we're going to be looking at why I decided to talk about this and why I had to go at implementing this style of assessment at Corinda State High. So looking at authentic products for authentic audiences as assessment. We'll look at what I'm actually trying to convince you to do, which is video essays, looking at the history, purpose, and aesthetic features. And then I will talk to you about my case study where I tried implementing this with a Year 9 class at Corinda State High. We'll look at some student examples which are interesting, and we'll have some time for feedback, feed forward, and any questions you might have. So, my preamble, you should know some things about me as someone who is in school in the mid to early 2010s. Right. So my experiences as a school student during the digital education revolution. During this time, Miss Gillard and Miss Gillard and Mr. Rudd implemented the idea that every school student should have a laptop or have immediate access to a computer. Right. So I was in school between 2001 to 2012. I remain very young and very beautiful. I can remember having typing classes in preschool or in grade 1. By the time I was in grade 9, we had laptop trolleys, which were a blight upon everyone. And by year 10, everybody had to have a laptop. Year 12, everybody had to have a laptop. It was an absolute necessity. Everything was done digitally. Assessment was done digitally. You could take notes in your book if you wanted to, but all assessment was done absolutely digitally. One-to-one laptops rolled out in my high school in 2010. This is a picture of me as an unfortunate grade 9 student. I blocked out my friends' faces out of respect. This one-to-one laptop rollout was really, really difficult. I loved it. I love computers. It was no problem. But there were a lot of teething pains, including high expectations of what we could achieve in that early period versus the low experience of teachers at the time who were marking things by hand, as we still do. Right? Teachers were working really, really hard to adapt to these expectations of, now that everybody's got a laptop, all our world's problems are fixed, right? You guys can do really crazy and innovative things, but that was not the case. And also children were just annoying, right? Breaking laptops was the first thing everybody did, from just not caring whether or not it fell off the table to not having workplace health and safety rules about whether or not you could charge in a classroom. Insurance companies still working out what was worth insuring in terms of 13-year-olds having what were $2,000 laptops at the time. Now, I do want to check my privilege at this point. I went to a pretty expensive private school in high school. The laptop rollout in 2010 was pretty early, all things considered. And we had unbelievably powerful laptops for very little reason, and that just had to do with experiences with the IT department as well. Moreover, I come from a very technologically adept family. My first computer was given to me when I was 4 years old, so I fully understand that I come from a very particular place when I can talk about these things seeming really easy, but I know that's not the case for everyone, and I appreciate that. So, furthermore, when I look at my time as a student, even way back in primary school in the mid-2000s, I can remember technology was being integrated in really interesting ways. So this was pre the one-to-one laptop thing, but we still had computer labs, and I don't know if you recall when in primary school classrooms where every classroom had like a singular, enormous Dell black computer sitting in the back corner, and that's what I can recall. I can remember doing all kinds of funny types of assessment, from making animated movies like claymation movies with iMovie, doing stuff with Microsoft Publisher, so making brochures and stuff like that. And I don't know if you probably may not have heard of Photo Story. That was a weird Windows exploration into something in between iMovie and PowerPoint, where you could stitch videos together and put you couldn't put in videos, you could only put in pictures, and then you could do a narration over it, which was quite weird. But it was cool. I learned a lot of skills doing that. It's part of the reason why I'm so technologically literate today. All of these kinds of things, assessment types had project-style learning and assessment that usually worked with cross-subject integration. So admittedly, not all of it was English stuff. It was usually, for that, I remember very, very clearly in grade 6, we had to do little claymation animations with the singular Mac computer that the whole school had. And that was about, we had to make these little videos about natural disasters. So I wrote and directed a film about cyclones in Queensland. It was quite strange, but it covered, you know, geography, humanities, English, IT, all that kind of stuff in one neat little package, right? What we kind of lose, as we probably want to complain about, is losing that element of play, which a lot of these really, really integrated. We kind of move away from that in high school, right? Particularly in English. In high school, I returned to more traditional assessment types, only facilitated by technology. So mostly essays and stories written in Word, and then the beloved PowerPoint presentation. We come to this point where we talk about the multimodal presentation a lot. And we say, this script comes up a lot in classrooms from teachers that I had to the way I talk to my students today, which is absolutely regrettable. Multimodal just means more than one mode. Right? So you can give a presentation with a PowerPoint, you can make a video or a vlog, you could make a poster. Anyway, here are the aesthetic features of a persuasive speech. Make a PowerPoint at the end. Right? And this is so unfortunate because, as I'm going to explain to you today, making a video or a vlog is absolutely worth teaching. It can be really fun, and I'll show you a couple of student examples that I think are really, really cool. So how can we meet the academic requirements of high school English while teaching students to present their works as authentic contemporary technological texts? That phrase, contemporary technological text, is very, very particular because I know as people who are no longer children, we love to say, oh, you could make a TikTok if you wanted without having the first fizzy idea what a TikTok is, or not knowing what a YouTube video is, as TikTok is relatively new when it comes down to it. Or make a Vine. Vine is such a particular genre. Setting up a joke and delivering a punchline in a sweet 6 seconds is like a real skill and absolutely useless to us as teachers. So I'm going to suggest to you this genre called the video essay, which is fairly self-explanatory. Before we get to the video essay, I want to actually tell you what a vlog actually is, because like I said, we like to bandy around the word vlog a lot and then not know what it is or how to teach it. So the vlog is actually kind of an outdated term. It was once an unedited, probably fairly unplanned video about a special interest or topic that was uploaded to blog websites of the mid-2000s. So think Blogspot, back when that was a thing, when we used to write long form on the internet. People who were particularly technologically capable would film videos about talking about their special interests, like collecting ceramic plates or something. Right? Today, when you talk about vlogs, if you asked a student what a vlog was, they'd probably tell you that a vlog is kind of a side product made by internet celebrities or personalities. It's usually like a day-to-day thing. It's usually referred to as a daily vlog, so the said celebrity, as if we care, will carry a camera around and be like, let's go shopping, or come get my bubble tea with me, or something like that. It's less planned and less edited than their usual content, which might be a gaming channel or a video essay channel or something more specific. Not that kids watch video essays, but we'll get to that in a minute. An example is actually what my partner does. Speaking of funny special interests, she's got a YouTube video where she does daily videos on the progress of her little virtual pet toys from the 2000s, which she collects and restores. I made a joke that I would include her as this example. She was like, yeah, I'm looking for new followers, just do it. So,
what's the username?
It's called kit_dot_exe, like the program. It is cute, right? She's very clever and nothing else very good looking, so have a look. Kit.exe. Yeah, so her videos are about her retro virtual pet games. So if you ever remember those Digimon things that you used to put to your belt and shake around and count your steps and you'd raise eggs and stuff like that, that's her shtick. Expect a lot of Pokemon content, I'm so sorry. So anecdotally, when we throw around the word vlog, we try to use it as like some kind of potential motive assessment for the kids who are, above and beyond and know what they're doing at all given points. The problem with the vlog is that it's kind of a vague genre with few defined aesthetic features. It can be suitable for creative writing tasks because it has an epistolary quality, so it's like diary-like or letter-like. But unfortunately, it's not really suitable for analytical tasks because it's so unstructured, right? There is an example of a fictional vlog, which is a YouTube adaptation of Joseph Sheridan's Leffanu's novella Carmilla. It's a vampire thing. I think it started in 2016. It's like an episodic retelling of that story, and it's recontextualized to be in a college kind of setting. It's really cool, really soppy. If you like gay vampires, go have a look. It can be very fun, but yeah, I would like to focus more on the analytical possibilities with a video essay. So, a descendant of the vlog is, as I keep saying, a video essay. Video essays are a popular genre of video, often hosted on YouTube. You can find them on Vimeo as well, but Vimeo is kind of a weird platform to use. It's hard to search for stuff. It's an entertaining way to deliver information and textual analysis. Genre and aesthetic features are easy to teach and learn because they're very similar in function and purpose as a typical analytical essay. They don't actually require a high level of technological capability to create, and many students already authentically engage with the medium. They might not be watching video essays specifically, but they are on YouTube, and YouTube has a very particular form of delivery. There's a very particular style of humor, of editing that is appropriate to YouTube, and the kids already get that. Most of them do anyway, and we will talk about the problems with that momentarily. These are some of my favorite video essays that I love watching. So the first one here is Mean Girls, and it's about Regina George through the psychology lens, and it calls her a dictator from Mean Girls, which is cool. This is a really beautiful video essay which compares Whiplash, the movie, to Black Swan. And I have had just a lovely revisit of why Twilight sucks as a franchise, and this is about a surprisingly passionate defense of Twilight. I've got a list of these at the end of the presentation. Happy to email that out later on. So, the textual and structural features of a video essay. You can kind of break these down into 6-ish features. Like I said, they're very similar to a regular written essay. So the purpose of a video essay is both analytical, persuasive, and entertaining, right? We love to say that you can write an entertaining essay, but this is a really very pragmatic way to make essays entertaining. I do have an activity with my students that when I taught this that talked about the pros and cons of an essay, and they said very beautiful things like, it's just a really organized way to present information. Like, it's just really organized and we like that. And when I was like, okay, so what don't we like about essays? And they're like, I like essays, it's fine. It's fine. I'm like, it's okay, you can say they're boring, it's fine. Like, no one reads essays on purpose unless you're us. Like, the audience is YouTube users, which is a very particular audience, and it also depends on the text or content being presented. Unless you're people like us, no one's going to watch a video essay about Kafka for funsies, right? So it will depend on what they're covering. The tone and language, again, depends on the audience, but it can range from quite casual to quite academic, and I'll show you some examples of both those kinds of tones in a hot second. The content is usually utilized to explore and analyze a vast variety of texts and ideas, and it can go from movies, TV shows, musical, historical, and current events. In this instance, we look at celebrity culture in the task that I set for my grade 9s. And the structure is very, very similar to a traditional written essay. It has a hook, a thesis, a collection of arguments, and a reiteration or a conclusion. Because the structure is so tight, and it's a structure that most grade 9s are reasonably familiar with by that point in their high school and career, that is like, you can roll over that really easy. It just comes quite naturally to a lot of these kids. The part that I think we tend to fall down with teachers is the audio and visual elements. What does it look like? Right? Because we probably imagine, you probably had examples of kids giving you vlogs where it's just them sitting in bed with the laptop open at an unflattering angle and they just talk for 8 to 13 minutes, right? The audio-visual elements of the video essay can vary, but as you'll see in the examples, they are typically very similar across the genre. So video essays can be narrated or hosted. So when I say narrated, I mean it's just a voiceover with what they see on the screen, versus hosted, where the narrator appears in the video and they can be used for different effects. Background music is really, really important. If you've ever watched a movie with no sound, it can feel very awkward. And just the simple task of putting a low-key bit of music in the back can really just elevate video essays. It will include a collection of different types of video content. So the first is obviously shots of the narrator appearing in the video. The second will be clips from the text they're analyzing. The third will be supporting short clips for various purposes, from making jokes to intertextual referencing. It can, again, very much elevate the video essay itself. The last thing that really ties all of this together sounds very minor, but it's well-organized transitions and cuts. Nothing is worse than watching kids slap stuff together because it's confusing, it can get very strange. But once you lay out the audio-visual elements and really verbalize that to the kids, they go, "Ah, you're right, I've seen that before, that makes sense to me." So let's look at a couple of examples. So my first example is a narrated video essay. We just have the visual content appearing on the screen and the narrator does a voiceover. You can tick off all of the features that I've just explained, but we'll have a quick watch. This is like so beautifully made and directed and put together. It's a good one. It's a good one. So this is about The Devil Wears Prada with Meryl Streep in it, which is probably the only reason why I watched it. And it's called The Devil Wears Prada, the first 10 pages, by a YouTube channel called Lessons from the Screenplay. Really cool channel, can't recommend.
I'm Michael, this is Lessons from the Screenplay. One of the most difficult parts of a script is the beginning. If you can't find a way to set up your story in a way that is both efficient and engaging, an audience may quickly lose interest. And as author Sid Field writes in his book Screenplay, everything is related in a screenplay, so it becomes essential to introduce your story components from the beginning. You've got 10 pages to grab or hook your reader, so you've got to set up your story immediately. The Devil Wears Prada does a fantastic job of setting up its story immediately. So today I want to go on a tour of the first 10 pages of the screenplay, to explore the various techniques used to establish character and convey exposition, and examine how each page draws us deeper and deeper into the world of the story. That's all. Let's take a look at The Devil Wears Prada. The screenplay for The Devil Wears Prada wastes no time in introducing us to the main character. The screenplay begins, fade in, steam on a mirror, wiped off by Andy Sachs, 20s, pretty but not glamorous, smart but green, hair up in a towel, brushing her teeth. But rather than simply following Andy's morning routine, the script does something more interesting. We intercut Andy getting ready and we see 3 or 4 other girls getting ready too. A drawer filled with about 40 lipsticks slides into frame. One of the girls carefully applies shiny lip gloss with a brush. Andy puts on cherry chapstick. The first page uses comparison to concisely establish who our protagonist is by showing us who she isn't. While all these other women are meticulously choosing their wardrobe, Andy is simply grabbing what is comfortable and practical, because her focus is elsewhere. Andy straightens a pile of newspaper clips from the Daily Northwestern with the byline Andrea Sachs and proudly tucks them into her hideous college graduation present briefcase. In just 3/4 of a page, screenwriter Aline Broche McKenna establishes everything we need to know about our protagonist right now. She isn't interested in fashion, and she studied to be a journalist. As we get to the bottom of the first page, there's a moment where Andy arrives at an office building, but has made a mistake.
What floor is Elias Clark Human Resources?
Honey, you want West 49.
This demonstrates how inexperienced Andy is. It's an illustration of her character description in the script. Smart, but green. But there will be plenty more examples of this in the coming pages, and this scene interrupts the momentum of the sequence, which is probably why it's missing in the final film. In fact, almost the entirety of the second page was cut. Instead, the film jumps right to the moment when Andy enters the runway reception area, where we're given the dramatic question, exposition, and stakes.
Alright. So as you can see, this is quite a formalized version of the video essay, and just take down your expectations of what your kids are capable of. They will never produce something that is quite that beautiful or quite that sexy. But it still ticks all of the boxes that we can pull straight out of our expository essay criteria sheets, right? It's got a really, really clear audience, so YouTube video users, film buffs, lovers of The Devil Wears Prada. The tone is academic, but still quite accessible. The narrator explains a lot of the stuff that he's talking about, which is really great. The structure was so clearly just like a written essay. He had his hook and his introduction, the arguments, which we were just about to transition to in that second part, and presumably there's a reiteration. I kind of skipped the last part, as we wont to with YouTube videos. The audio and visual elements were very much the same as I previously explained. It was narrated, so it's not hosted, he doesn't appear in the video, but it's still very effective, it's still quite engaging. The background music faded in and out from parts of the soundtrack of the film to a low-key, unassuming piece of music that just elevated the script. Right? It didn't get in the way, but it still kept the mood engaging and propelled the video forward. You saw the short clips from the main text. In fact, I think most of that video was made up of clips from The Devil Wears Prada, but he did include other visual cues like explanation of terms, bits from the shots from the actual script. The transitions were, again, so beautiful and so seamless, but kids won't do that. It's fine. It's fine. We'll forgive them. I want to show you a second example of a hosted video. I will warn you, this one is not actually one I show the kids because she drinks through it. But it's quite funny, it's quite engaging. It's about Joel Schumacher's Phantom of the Opera film by this, I think she's a PhD student these days, by Lindsay Ellis. She does, this is all she does. She does 45-minute video essays about lots of different kinds of things. She's quite amusing, but you will very quickly see the differences between the two styles.
Remember back in 2002 when the Phantom of the Opera movie musical adaptation was finally getting geared up and Antonio Banderas was in talks to be in the lead, and we were all like, no, not Antonio Banderas. That would be the worst thing that could ever happen. What fools we were. Now today I'm going to talk about the actual no. And yes, it really is that simple, that there is one single actual no, and his name is not Antonio Banderas.
Andrew plucked me out of the chorus.
Rarely does good come from a wealthy auteur micromanaging their 30-something-year-old property.
He and his company raised all the money, and this was financed by Andrew and his company. So therefore, it was just us.
So instead of licensing the rights to the Phantom of the Opera musical, the movie, to a studio who would hire some filmmakers that knew what they were doing, market it worth a damn, and give it a big enough budget to where it didn't look like someone's flooded, unfinished basement.
Did not want a Hollywood studio being able to dictate to you how to make this movie.
I mean, it was marvelous.
They were so worried about the music.
Lord Andy kept it in-house and financed it himself. And since it changes so little from its source material, at least on a foundational level, it's easy to just point the blame at the stage musical, and that it's not very good, and never was. And the stage musical is flawed, don't get me wrong, but it works. I mean, there's a reason that the show is still running. So what is it about the movie adaptation that failed to capture the je ne sais quoi of the show? Well, don't you worry, because I wrote a 10,000-word Cliff Notes version of why this movie sucks. And which you are now watching. That is the thing you are now watching. And moreover, I'm just going to focus on the filmmaking. I'm not going to touch on the typical talking points. We know Butler can't sing. We know Rossum sounds like 80% of the girls in your high school chamber choir. We know that rad electric guitar riff is so lame it actually shoots the moon and goes back to rad. We can talk about the superficial stuff, but that's not what's really wrong with this movie. Its foundation is cracked beyond repair. That is the problem. And somebody has to set the record straight. And that someone is going to be me. That's not something necessarily to be proud of, by the way. Stage musicals have a long, proud history, much longer than film anything. From the 17th century and the rise of the popularity of the opera, all the way back to ancient Greece, with the archetypal Greek choir speak/singing along with the players, Theater is thousands of years old and has a different language to the relatively young and fluid film language. There is a lot of overlap, yes, but there are some things that work on stage that fall fantastically flat on film if translated directly.
I don't go so far, camera right.
Film has a lot of tools that theater lacks by virtue of form and vice versa. The musical was designed for theater, and when film came along, well, when talkies came along, stories and concepts that were originally written for theater were kind of retrofitted to work with this new language of film. You know, stuff like editing, framing, pacing, the lack of an audience to play to, and it's no coincidence that the rise of the Broadway mega musical in the mid-20th century was more film-like in its story structure than operas had been in the 19th century.
Industry boom in America.
Wealth in a room in America.
Film trends, theater trends, these things ebb and flow, but film has trended in a more realistic direction ever since one Michael Crawford starring musical.
You might have caught that very briefly. It showed that this goes for 45 minutes, and it's worth every miserable second. She eventually talks about the issue of making musicals into films because of the issue of the conflicting diegesis, where like in musicals you expect that everyone's going to burst out into song, but you don't really accept that in film. But anyway, it's super duper interesting. Highly recommend. Again, wouldn't show that to students because she's not sober in that movie. Again, if we look through the features, the audience remains YouTube users, film buffs, lovers, and absolutely haters of the Phantom of the Opera. I regret to inform everyone that this was a very formative teenage text for me. Sometimes these two are the same thing, lovers and haters. The tone and language is still much more casual in tone than the previous video, which was quite strict and quite scripted, but her language remains quite academic. She uses the technical language to describe the differences between film and musical theater. Again, structure completely the same. I only got to show you the hook of her the hook and part of the introduction of her video because it goes for so long. But after that, it very much follows the argument structure as well. The audio-visual elements are mostly similar, but kind of vary from the previous video. In this instance, she is hosted, and she's doing this in a very particular way. She has set up her set in a very particular way. There's the wine bottle on the piano, which is very important, and like a nice-looking cabinet in the back. This is often a problem we run across with asking students to film themselves, like I said, with their laptop in their lap from an unflattering angle, or having just their room a complete disaster zone behind them. So this is a good example of how simple a set can be. Step one, put your clothes away. This had much more variety in the visual components that were stitched together. She still used headers, or section headers, and used obviously clips from the film. She does that much more through the rest of the video. But she also included lots of other stuff as well. She included clips from interviews or clips from other movies to demonstrate her point, and that can be really, really important. So yeah, the well-organized short clips, transitions, and cuts really propelled quite a bit of this video.